My family went to Switzerland. Just us, the close ones, according to my mom's post. I'm Eden, 26 years old, and a graphic designer from Boston. Last Tuesday, I was scrolling through Instagram when my heart stopped. There they were, my parents, brother, and sister, posing in front of the Swiss Alps. My mother's caption read, "Just us, the close ones, making memories in Switzerland." I wasn't invited. As I zoomed in on the photos, something caught my eye. The distinctive blue leather wallet with gold initials, my custom travel wallet. They hadn't just excluded me, they'd taken what was mine. Before I tell you how I turned this betrayal into the most satisfying revenge, drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. And hit subscribe if family drama is your guilty pleasure. Growing up as the middle child in my family always felt like being caught in no man's land. My older brother Noah was the academic superstar. He brought home perfect report cards, won science competitions, and eventually got into Harvard on a partial scholarship. My parents would proudly display his trophies and certificates in the living room, right where everyone could see them when they walked in. Then there was my younger sister, Amelia. She was the social butterfly of the family, always surrounded by friends on the cheerleading squad and voted prom queen in her senior year. She was the one who made my parents laugh with her stories and antics. They never missed any of her performances or competitions. And then there was me, Eden, the middle child, the one who wasn't quite as academically brilliant as Noah or as socially gifted as Amelia. I had my own talents. I loved art and design from a young age. I would spend hours sketching, drawing, and creating. But somehow my achievements never seemed to measure up in my parents' eyes. My father, James, was a successful corporate lawyer, and my mother, Laura, was a high school principal. They had high expectations for all of us, but somehow those expectations manifested differently for each child. For Noah, they expected academic excellence. For Amelia, they expected social success. For me, they seemed to expect, well, I was never quite sure what they expected from me. The only person who really saw me was my grandmother. She was an artist too, though she never pursued it professionally. She would sit with me for hours, teaching me different techniques and encouraging my creativity. "You have a special eye, Eden," she would tell me. "You see beauty where others don't." When I decided to pursue graphic design in college, instead of a practical degree like business or law, my parents were less than thrilled. "Art is a hobby, not a career," my father said dismissively. My mother was a bit kinder, but still skeptical. "We just want you to be able to support yourself," she said, as if being an artist meant inevitable poverty. But my grandmother understood. She supported my decision wholeheartedly and even helped me financially when my parents refused to pay for an impractical degree. She would send me little checks with notes saying, "For art supplies," or "For that software you mentioned." 2 years ago, my grandmother passed away. It was devastating for me. She was my biggest supporter, my confidant, and in many ways my real parent. She left me a small inheritance in her will, not a fortune, but enough to help me finish design school and start my own freelance business. My parents seemed surprised that she had left me anything at all, as if they couldn't fathom why she would invest in my future. With my grandmother's inheritance, I was able to move to a small studio apartment in Boston and start building my career as a graphic designer. I worked hard, built a portfolio, and slowly started gaining clients. It wasn't easy, but I was proud of what I was accomplishing on my own terms. Despite the distance, both emotional and physical, I still tried to stay connected with my family. I would call regularly, visit for holidays, and make an effort to be present for important events. But it often felt one-sided. They rarely called me first, and when I visited, the conversations usually revolved around Noah's latest accomplishment or Amelia's social life. There were subtle signs of exclusion over the years. The time they all went to a Broadway show when I was visiting, but didn't think I'd be interested. Or when they celebrated my father's birthday a day early because I wouldn't arrive until the actual day. Small things perhaps, but they accumulated over time into a mountain of hurt. One of the first things I bought when my design business started taking off was a custom travel wallet. I designed it myself, blue leather with gold accents, and my initials discreetly embossed on the corner. It wasn't just a wallet, it was a symbol of my independence and success. I had created something beautiful and functional with my own talent, and I had paid for it with money I earned myself. I showed it to my mother during one of her rare visits to my apartment. "It's nice," she said, barely glancing at it before changing the subject to Noah's recent promotion. That was typical a quick acknowledgement before returning to the family favorites. The wallet had special compartments for different currencies, slots for travel cards, a special pocket for my passport, and a hidden section for emergency cash. I had planned to use it for my own travels someday, places I wanted to visit when I saved enough money. Switzerland was actually at the top of that list. I kept trying to gain recognition in my family. I would send them designs I was particularly proud of, share news about new clients, and talk about my growing business. But the response was always lukewarm at best. "That's nice, dear," my mother would say before quickly changing the subject to something Noah or Amelia was doing. It was exhausting, constantly seeking validation from people who seemed incapable of giving it. But they were my family, and despite everything, I still wanted to be a part of it. I wanted them to see me, really see me, and be proud of who I was becoming. Little did I know that their next act of exclusion would be so blatant, so hurtful, that it would finally force me to stand up for myself in a way I never had before. And it would all revolve around that custom travel wallet, the symbol of my independence, that they would appropriate without a second thought. It was a Tuesday afternoon, and I was taking a quick lunch break between client meetings. I absent-mindedly scrolled through Instagram while eating my sandwich at my desk. That's when I saw a photo of my family standing in front of the iconic Matterhorn in Switzerland. My mother's caption read, "Just us the close ones, making memories in Switzerland." I nearly choked on my sandwich. Switzerland. My entire family was in Switzerland without me. I felt like someone had punched me in the stomach. My hands were shaking as I scrolled through more photos my parents, Noah and Amelia, eating fondue, hiking in the Alps, shopping in Zurich. They looked so happy, so complete without me. For a moment, I wondered if I was overreacting. Maybe it was a last-minute trip. Maybe they had tried to contact me but couldn't reach me. Maybe there was a reasonable explanation. But deep down, I knew better. As I continued scrolling through the photos, my phone started buzzing with messages. My cousin Taylor. "How Switzerland looks amazing." My Aunt Patricia. "I thought you were going to Switzerland with your family." Did something come up? Even my mother's friend Susan. "Your mom's pictures from Switzerland are gorgeous. Are you having a good time?" Each message was like salt in the wound. Not only had I been excluded, but apparently everyone else knew about the trip. Everyone except me. I called my cousin Grace, who had always been kind to me. "Did you know about this Switzerland trip?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "Oh, Eden," she said, her voice full of sympathy. "I thought you knew. They've been planning it for months. Your mom mentioned it at the Easter gathering." The Easter gathering that I had missed because I was finishing a major project for a new client. A project that had paid very well and that I was proud of. A project that no one in my family had asked about when I called to apologize for missing Easter. "No," I said quietly. "No one told me about it." There was an awkward pause on the line. "I'm sorry, Eden. That's not right." After talking with Grace, I went back to the photos, scrutinizing them more carefully. That's when I noticed it in a picture of my mother rifling through her purse at a cafe. I could see the edge of a blue leather wallet with gold accents. My wallet. My custom-designed travel wallet. I zoomed in on the image, hardly believing my eyes. But there was no mistaking it. The distinctive blue leather, the gold corner where my initials were embossed. It was definitely my wallet. How had they gotten it? And then I remembered my family had visited my apartment about a month ago. It was a rare visit. They were in Boston for one of Noah's alumni events and decided to stop by to see me. I had been so excited cleaning my tiny studio apartment from top to bottom and preparing snacks that no one ended up eating. During that visit, my mother had asked to use my bathroom. The bathroom was adjacent to my bedroom where I kept the travel wallet in my dresser drawer. She must have seen it and taken it without asking. The realization made me feel sick. They hadn't just excluded me from a family vacation, they had taken something that was mine, something I had designed and paid for myself, something that represented my independence and success. I kept scrolling through the photos, finding more evidence. There was a shot of my father holding the wallet while paying at a restaurant, another of Amelia using it to store their train tickets. They were passing my wallet around like it was communal property. The more I looked, the angrier I became. This wasn't just about being excluded from a trip. This was about a fundamental lack of respect for me as a person, for my boundaries, for my property. It was as if I didn't exist as an individual in their eyes. I was just an extension of them. Someone whose feelings and possessions could be disregarded without a second thought. I remembered showing my mother the wallet months ago, explaining how I had designed it myself, how it represented my success. She had barely looked at it before changing the subject, and now she was using it on their family vacation, a vacation I hadn't been invited to. The wallet contained my travel cards, including a backup credit card that I kept for emergencies. Had they been using that too? The thought hadn't occurred to me until that moment. I quickly opened my banking app and checked the account linked to that card. My heart sank. There were dozens of transactions from Switzerland restaurants, shops, tourist attractions, hotels. They weren't just using my wallet, they were using my emergency credit card to fund their vacation. The betrayal was complete. They had excluded me from their family trip, stolen my personal property, and were now using my credit card without my permission. It was as if they had taken everything I had worked for, my independence, my success, my boundaries, and trampled all over it. I sat at my desk, tears streaming down my face, trying to process the magnitude of their betrayal. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't an oversight. This was a deliberate act of disrespect and disregard. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't going to let it slide. With shaking hands, I dialed my mother's number. Despite the time difference between Boston and Switzerland, she answered on the third ring. "Hello, Eden?" she said, sounding distracted. I could hear laughter and music in the background. They were having a good time, without me. "Mom," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I saw the photos of your trip to Switzerland on Instagram." "Oh, yes," she said brightly. "It's absolutely beautiful here. The mountains are just stunning." She didn't apologize for not inviting me. She didn't even acknowledge that I had been excluded. It was as if the idea that I might feel hurt by their actions hadn't even occurred to her. "Why wasn't I invited?" I asked, directly refusing to dance around the issue. There was a pause on the line. "Well," she said finally, her voice taking on that slightly condescending tone she often used with me. "We didn't think you'd be interested. You're always so busy with your little design projects." My little design projects, my career, my livelihood, reduced to a hobby in her eyes. "And besides," she continued, "we knew you probably couldn't afford it. We didn't want to put you in an awkward position." Before I could respond to that, I heard my father's voice in the background asking who she was talking to. Then he was on the phone. "Eden," he said, his voice businesslike as always. "How are you?" "I'm hurt," I said honestly. "You all went on a family vacation without even telling me about it." He cleared his throat uncomfortably. "Now, Eden, you know we're on a budget. We couldn't pay for everyone." "You're staying at the Four Seasons," I said, having recognized the distinctive lobby in one of their photos. "That's hardly budget accommodation. And if money was tight, why are you paying for Noah and Amelia?" "They both have jobs." "Noah is exploring potential partnerships with Swiss universities," my father said defensively. "This trip is partially for his academic advancement." Of course it was. Everything was always about Noah's advancement. "And Amelia," I pressed. "She had vacation days she needed to use," he said weakly. I could hear Noah in the background now asking what was going on. Then he was on the phone too. "Eden," he said, his voice smug as usual, "you wouldn't have appreciated this trip properly. It's not just a vacation. I'm making important academic connections here." "Right," I said sarcastically. "I saw all those academic connections in the photo of you skiing." Before he could respond, I heard Amelia grab the phone. "Eden," she squealed as if we were best friends. "You should see the shopping here. I found the cutest clothes." While she was talking, I saw another Instagram notification pop up on my phone. It was Amelia posting another photo. The caption read, family bonding in Switzerland, making memories with the people who matter most. The people who matter most. Apparently, I wasn't one of them. I noticed something else in the photos, I said, cutting Amelia off mid-sentence. My travel wallet, the one I designed myself, the blue leather one with gold accents and my initials. There was silence on the line. That's my personal property, I continued. And somehow it's in Switzerland with all of you. My mother came back on the line. Oh, that, she said dismissively. I borrowed it when we visited last month. I thought it would be perfect for the trip. You weren't using it anyway. You didn't borrow it, Mom. You took it without asking. That's called stealing. Don't be so dramatic, Eden, she scoffed. We're family. What's mine is yours and what's yours is mine. That had always been their attitude, except it only seemed to work one way. What was theirs stayed firmly theirs. What was mine was up for grabs. And my emergency credit card that was in the wallet, I asked. Is that yours too? Another silence, this one longer. We may have used it for a few small expenses, my father admitted finally. We'll pay you back, of course. A few small expenses, I echoed in disbelief. I'm looking at my account right now. There are thousands of dollars in charges. Now, Eden, my father began in his lawyer voice, the one he used when he was about to spin something. You need to understand the situation. Our cards were having some issues with international charges. We just used yours as a backup. It's all perfectly reasonable. Reasonable? I was nearly shouting now. You excluded me from a family vacation, stole my personal property, and used my credit card without permission. In what world is that reasonable? You're overreacting, my mother said coldly. This is why we didn't invite you. You always make everything so difficult. That was the final straw. The years of being overlooked, dismissed, and disrespected culminated in that moment. I had spent my whole life trying to please these people, trying to earn their approval and attention. And this was what I got in return. I'm going to hang up now, I said, surprised at how calm my voice sounded, despite the storm raging inside me. Enjoy the rest of your trip. Eden, my father began, but I had already ended the call. Almost immediately, my phone buzzed with a text from my mother. You're being childish. It's not a big deal. When you calm down, you'll see that. I turned off my phone and sat in silence, tears streaming down my face. But these weren't tears of sadness anymore. They were tears of anger, of resolve. For the first time in my life, I wasn't going to let them brush this aside. I wasn't going to pretend it was okay. They had gone too far, and it was time they learned that their actions had consequences. As I sat there with my phone turned off, a plan began to form in my mind. They had taken something that belonged to me and used it without permission. They had spent my money without asking. There had to be something I could do about that. I turned my phone back on and looked again at the charges on my emergency credit card. The list was extensive: $500 at a Michelin-starred restaurant in Zurich, $700 at a luxury watch store, nearly $1,000 at the Four Seasons Hotel, hundreds more at various shops, restaurants, and tourist attractions. They weren't just using my card for small expenses or emergencies, they were funding their entire vacation with it. The card had a $5,000 limit, and they had already spent nearly $4,000. At this rate, they'd max it out before their trip was over. I called my best friend Sophia, who had been by my side through many family dramas over the years. They did what? She exclaimed after I explained the situation. That's not just mean, Eden. That's illegal. They stole your wallet and are using your credit card without permission. I know, I said, still trying to process it myself. I just don't know what to do about it. Call your bank, Sophia said without hesitation. Report the card as stolen, because that's exactly what happened. I hadn't even considered that option. In my family, standing up for myself was so discouraged that I automatically assumed there was nothing I could do. But Sophia was right. This wasn't just a family squabble. This was theft and credit card fraud. Can I really do that? I asked hesitantly. They're my family. Being family doesn't give them the right to steal from you, Sophia said firmly. Would you let a stranger get away with this? Because what they did is actually worse. They betrayed your trust. She was right. If anyone else had stolen my wallet and used my credit card, I wouldn't hesitate to report it. Why should my family be held to a lower standard? In fact, shouldn't they be held to a higher one? After talking with Sophia, I did some research online about unauthorized credit card usage. According to my credit card agreement, I wasn't liable for unauthorized charges if I reported them promptly. The card was in my name only, which meant that no one else was authorized to use it, not even my family members. I also learned that I had the right to dispute any charges I didn't authorize. The bank would investigate, and if they found the charges were indeed unauthorized, they would reverse them. The merchants would then be out the money, and whoever had used the card could potentially face consequences. It was a powerful realization. For my entire life, I had felt powerless in my relationship with my family. I had accepted their dismissals, their exclusions, their disrespect. But in this situation, I actually had more power than they did. I could stop them in their tracks with just a phone call. I took screenshots of all the unauthorized transactions and saved them in a folder on my computer. I wrote down dates, times, and locations. I gathered all the evidence I would need to prove that I wasn't in Switzerland making these purchases. I also documented how my wallet had been taken without my permission during my family's visit to my apartment the previous month. I had text messages from around that time mentioning the wallet to a client, proving that it had been in my possession before their visit. As I prepared all this evidence, I felt a strange mix of emotions. There was anger, of course, and hurt, but there was also a growing sense of empowerment. For once, I wasn't just going to accept their mistreatment. I was going to stand up for myself. I called Sophia again to talk through my plan. I'm thinking of reporting the card as stolen and disputing all the charges, I told her. But I'm scared of what will happen. They're going to be furious. They're already treating you terribly, Sophia pointed out. What are you afraid will change? It was a good question. What was I afraid of? That they would exclude me. They already did. That they wouldn't respect me. They already didn't. That they would be angry. Maybe that was it. I had spent my life trying to avoid their anger, trying to be the easy, accommodating one. But where had that gotten me? You know what the best part is? Sophia said. They're in Switzerland. If their cards get declined because yours is suddenly deactivated, they might find themselves in a real bind, might give them a taste of their own medicine. I hadn't thought of that. If I reported my card as stolen, the bank would deactivate it immediately. Any pending charges would be declined. Any charges that had already gone through would be investigated and potentially reversed. My family would suddenly find themselves unable to use my card for the remainder of their trip. The thought gave me a small vindictive thrill. They had excluded me from their trip, stolen my property, and used my money without permission. Maybe it was time they faced some consequences for their actions. I'm going to do it, I said, my voice stronger than it had been all day. I'm going to call the bank right now. Good for you, Eden, Sophia said. It's about time you stood up to them. After hanging up with Sophia, I took a deep breath and dialed my bank's customer service number. It was time to take back control. With resolve strengthening my voice, I explained the situation to the bank representative. My travel wallet had been taken without my permission, and my credit card was being used for unauthorized purchases in Switzerland. I'm looking at your account now, Ms. Coleman, the representative said. There are indeed numerous transactions from Switzerland over the past few days, and you're saying you're not currently in Switzerland. That's correct, I confirmed. I'm in Boston. I have not authorized anyone to use my card. In that case, we'll need to report the card as stolen and begin the dispute process. I'll deactivate the card immediately to prevent any further unauthorized use. A small part of me hesitated. This was my family. Was I really going to do this to them? But then I remembered their dismissive attitudes, the years of exclusion, the casual way they had taken my property and used my money without a second thought. Yes, I was really going to do this. Please proceed, I said firmly. The representative walked me through the process. We went through each transaction one by one, and I formally disputed each charge. The bank would investigate and temporarily credit the disputed amounts back to my account. If their investigation confirmed the charges were unauthorized, those credits would become permanent. We'll also send you some forms to fill out. The representative explained. You'll need to provide a detailed account of how and when the card was stolen. This may be used if the case is referred to the authorities. The authorities. I hadn't considered that this could become a police matter. The thought made me uncomfortable, but I reminded myself that I wasn't the one who had done anything wrong. One more thing, I said before ending the call. Is it possible to set up alerts for any new authorization attempts on the card? I'd like to know if anyone tries to use it again. Absolutely. I'll set that up for you right now. After finishing with the bank, I had one more call to make. I contacted the Four Seasons Hotel in Zurich where my family was staying. I explained that my credit card had been used to make unauthorized charges at their hotel. This is most concerning, Ms. Coleman, the hotel manager said. We take credit card fraud very seriously. The people using my card are actually staying at your hotel right now, I explained. Room 412 under the name James Coleman. There was a pause on the line. That is an unusual situation. Are these people known to you? Yes, I admitted. They're my family members, but they took my card without permission and have been using it without authorization. Another pause. I see. Well, regardless of your relationship to them, unauthorized use of a credit card is something we must address. We will need to speak with the guests in question and request an alternative form of payment. I understand. Thank you for your assistance. After hanging up, I sat back in my chair, a strange sense of calm washing over me. The deed was done. My card was deactivated. The disputes were filed. The hotel was aware of the situation. Now all I had to do was wait. I didn't have to wait long. Within an hour, my phone was buzzing with notifications. First was an alert from my bank: authorization attempt declined for card ending in 4892. Merchant Le Grand Café, Zurich, Switzerland. Amount $237.45. They must have tried to pay for lunch with my card and been declined. I could imagine their confusion, their embarrassment, as the waiter returned to say their card had been rejected. Then came the texts. First from my father. There seems to be an issue with your credit card. Call me immediately. Then from my mother. Eden, what have you done? Your card isn't working. I didn't respond to either message. Let them sweat a little. Next came a call from my father. I let it go to voicemail. His message was terse. Eden, we're in a very uncomfortable situation here. The hotel says there's an issue with your credit card. Call me back right away. I still didn't call back. Instead, I sent a single text to the family group chat. I've reported my credit card as stolen, which it was, along with my travel wallet. I've disputed all unauthorized charges. I suggest you find another way to pay for your family vacation. You know, the one you didn't invite me to. The response was immediate and explosive. My phone rang nonstop for the next 20 minutes. I didn't answer. Instead, I watched as the text messages piled up. From my father. This is completely unacceptable behavior, Eden. You've put us in a very difficult position. From my mother, I can't believe you would do this to your own family. This is so selfish and immature. From Noah, way to create drama as usual. You're ruining everyone's trip. From Amelia, OMG, Eden, this is so embarrassing. The hotel manager came to our room. I let them rant. For once, I wasn't going to apologize. I wasn't going to back down. I wasn't going to make things easier for them at my own expense. This time they were going to have to deal with the consequences of their actions. Finally, I answered a call from my father. Eden. He began, his voice that careful combination of anger and restraint he used when he was trying to control a situation. You need to call the bank right now and tell them this was a misunderstanding. It wasn't a misunderstanding, I said calmly. You took my wallet without permission. You used my credit card without authorization. That's theft and fraud, Dad. You're a lawyer. You know that. We're your family, he sputtered. We were going to pay you back. When and how was I supposed to know that? No one even told me you were using my card, just like no one told me about this family vacation. Eden, be reasonable. I am being reasonable. You're the ones who stole from me. The bank is investigating all the charges and they'll be reversed. You'll have to pay for your vacation with your own money. There was a long pause on the line. The hotel is asking for immediate payment, he said finally, his voice tight. We may have to cut our trip short. That sounds like a personal problem, Dad. Maybe next time don't steal from your daughter. I hung up before he could respond. It felt incredibly liberating setting a boundary and sticking to it, refusing to be manipulated or guilted, standing up for myself in a way I never had before. The hotel called me next. "Ms. Coleman, we've spoken with the guests in room 412, the manager said. They claim there's been a misunderstanding and that they had permission to use your card. That's not true, I said firmly. My wallet was taken without my knowledge and my card was used without my authorization. I've already reported it to my bank as fraud. I understand. We've requested alternative payment from the guests. They've provided another credit card for the remainder of their stay, though they've indicated they may be checking out earlier than planned. Thank you for handling this professionally, I said. After that call, I received another flurry of angry messages from my family. My mother claimed I was breaking her heart with my vindictive behavior. My father threatened various vague consequences. Noah called me childish. Amelia sent crying emojis. I ignored them all. Instead, I texted Sophia. I did it. The card is deactivated, charges disputed, hotel notified. Her response was immediate. Yes, so proud of you. How does it feel? I thought about it for a moment. How did it feel? It felt like standing up straight after years of hunching over. It felt like finally putting down a heavy burden I'd been carrying for too long. It felt like taking a deep breath of fresh air after being underwater. It feels good, I texted back. Really good. 3 days later, my family returned from Switzerland, cutting their 10-day trip down to just 5. I knew they were back because the group chat was filled with complaints about changed flights, lost deposits, and general travel frustrations. No one contacted me directly. I gave them a day to settle in and then texted the group, "We need to talk, all of us, in person. I'll come to the house tomorrow at 7." My father responded simply, "We'll be here." I spent the next 24 hours preparing myself for the confrontation. This wasn't just about the wallet or the credit card or even the trip. This was about years of being overlooked, dismissed, and disrespected. This was about finally setting boundaries and demanding the respect I deserved. Sophia offered to come with me for moral support, but I declined. This was something I needed to do on my own. "I'll call you right after," I promised her, "no matter how it goes." When I arrived at my parents' house the next evening, the tension was palpable. They were all seated in the living room, looking like they were preparing for a formal negotiation rather than a family discussion. My father sat in his usual armchair. My mother perched on the edge of the sofa, Noah sprawled in the window seat, and Amelia cross-legged on the floor. "Eden," my father began as soon as I sat down, "your behavior was completely unacceptable. You embarrassed us, cost us thousands of dollars, and ruined our vacation." I took a deep breath. In the past, I would have immediately apologized, accepted all blame, and promised to make it right. Not this time. "No," I said, surprised at how steady my voice was. What was unacceptable was excluding me from a family vacation, stealing my property, and using my credit card without permission. "We didn't steal anything," my mother protested. "I borrowed your wallet. I was going to return it." "You took it without asking me. That's stealing, Mom. And using my credit card was fraud. You all know that." Noah rolled his eyes. "Always so dramatic. It's just a wallet." "It's not just a wallet," I said, turning to face him. "It's a custom wallet that I designed myself. It represents my work, my career, the one you all constantly dismiss as a hobby. And it's mine. You don't get to take what's mine just because you're family." "We were going to pay you back for the charges," my father insisted. How no one even told me you were using my card. I had to find out by checking my account after seeing Instagram photos of a vacation I wasn't even invited to. Amelia at least had the grace to look ashamed. "We should have invited you," she admitted softly. "That wasn't fair." "No, it wasn't," I agreed. "None of this was fair. But it's not just about this one incident. It's about years of being treated like I don't matter, like my feelings don't count, like my property isn't really mine." "That's ridiculous," my mother said dismissively. "You're our daughter. Of course you matter." "Do I? Because it doesn't feel that way. It feels like I've always been an afterthought in this family. Noah's the golden child with his academic achievements. Amelia's the social butterfly that everyone adores. And I'm, what, The invisible middle child whose accomplishments don't count because they're not the kind you value. My father shifted uncomfortably in his seat. That's not true. We're proud of all our children. When was the last time you asked about my work, Dad? When was the last time you came to one of my gallery showings? When was the last time any of you showed any interest in my life? The silence that followed was deafening. That's what I thought, I continued. You don't include me, you don't respect me, and you certainly don't respect my boundaries. Well, that stops now. I'm setting some ground rules. My father raised an eyebrow. Ground rules. Yes. First, you will never take my property without explicitly asking and receiving permission. Second, you will never use my credit card or any of my financial resources without my express consent. Third, if there are family events or trips, I will be informed and included, even if you assume I won't want to come or can't afford it. That's my decision to make, not yours. And if we don't agree to these rules? My mother asked, her voice cold. I met her gaze directly. Then I won't be part of this family anymore. It's that simple. I deserve to be treated with respect. And if you can't do that, then there's no place for me here. The room fell silent again. I could see the shock on their faces. They hadn't expected this from me, their usually compliant, eager to please middle child. But I wasn't that person anymore. I couldn't be not if I wanted to maintain my self-respect. Finally, my father cleared his throat. You've made your point, Eden. We hear you. Do you? Because I need more than empty words. I need to see actual change in how you treat me. What about the money? Noah interjected. The hotel made us pay everything twice because of what you did. That's not my problem, I said firmly. You used my card without permission. Those charges were rightfully reversed. If you had asked me if you had included me, this wouldn't have happened. More uncomfortable silence followed. Then, surprisingly, Amelia spoke up again. I'm sorry, Eden. Really. We should have invited you. And we definitely shouldn't have taken your wallet or used your card. Her apology seemed sincere, and I nodded in acknowledgement. Thank you, Amelia. My parents exchanged glances. We may have overstepped, my father admitted reluctantly. But your response was extreme. Was it? Because it seems to me that it was the only way to get your attention. Nothing else has worked. My mother's lips thinned, but she didn't argue. Fine, we won't take your things without asking. It wasn't exactly a heartfelt apology, but it was a concession. A start. And the family events, I pressed. Yes, yes, we'll include you, she said, waving a hand dismissively. Noah remained stubbornly silent, arms crossed over his chest. He clearly felt I had overreacted, but I didn't care. This wasn't about him or his opinion of me. This was about standing up for myself. Then I guess we're done here, I said, rising to my feet. I'll see myself out. No one tried to stop me as I walked to the door. No one called after me, but I hadn't expected them to. Rome wasn't built in a day, and family dynamics didn't change overnight. What mattered was that I had finally stood up for myself. I had set boundaries and demanded respect, and in doing so, I had begun to respect myself. As I drove home, I felt lighter than I had in years. I had no illusions that this one confrontation would fix everything. There would be more battles ahead, more boundaries to defend, more respect to demand. But I had taken the first step, and that was what mattered. When I got home, I called Sophia as promised. How did it go? She asked anxiously. I thought about it for a moment. It went exactly as it needed to go, I said finally. I said what I needed to say and I didn't back down. That's my girl, she said proudly. So what happens now? Now, I said, a small smile forming on my lips. I start living on my terms. No more seeking their approval. No more accepting disrespect. Just me building the life I want with the people who actually value me. I'll drink to that, Sophia said. And for the first time in as long as I could remember, I felt like I was finally on the right path. 6 months after the Switzerland incident, I found myself parking outside my parents' house for the monthly family dinner. In the past, I would have dreaded these gatherings, anticipating the subtle slights and dismissals that inevitably came my way. But things were different now. After our confrontation, I had declined the next 3 Sunday dinner invitations. I needed time and space to establish my new boundaries, to show them that my participation in family events was no longer guaranteed, but had to be earned through respect. When I finally did accept an invitation, it was on my terms. I arrived when I wanted to, left when I was ready, and didn't apologize for either. To my surprise, my absence had been noticed. There was an awkwardness when I first returned, a hesitancy in how they interacted with me. It was as if they were suddenly aware that I might walk away again if they didn't treat me properly. That awareness had created a shift in the family dynamic, subtle at first, but growing more pronounced with each passing month. As I walked into the house that evening, I was greeted warmly by Amelia, who had made the most effort to repair our relationship. "Eden, I was hoping you'd come tonight. I want to show you the logo designs for my new business idea. I could really use your professional opinion." That was new, someone in my family actually valuing my professional expertise. I smiled and promised to look at her designs after dinner. My mother was in the kitchen putting the finishing touches on the meal. "Eden," she said, nodding in acknowledgement. Her greeting was still somewhat reserved, but there was a new note of respect in her voice that hadn't been there before. "I made that roasted vegetable dish you like." Another small change. She had actually remembered a preference of mine and incorporated it into the meal. It wasn't a grand gesture, but it was something. My father was more direct in his transformation. When I entered the living room, he actually stood up from his chair. "Eden," he said, extending his hand for a formal shake. "Good to see you. I was reading about that graphic design award ceremony in the city next month. Is your firm participating?" I was momentarily stunned. He had not only remembered what I did for a living, but had also taken the initiative to learn about events in my industry. "Yes," I said, recovering quickly. "Actually, one of my designs has been nominated in the branding category." "Well, that's excellent," he said, and though the praise was awkward, it seemed genuine. "You'll have to tell us more about it." Noah was the last to arrive, and he remained the most resistant to the new family order. He greeted me with a curt nod, his expression carefully neutral. But even he seemed to have gotten the memo that things had changed. He didn't make any dismissive comments about my career, or pointedly exclude me from conversations, as he might have done in the past. During dinner, I noticed other small but significant shifts. When I spoke, people actually listened. When I mentioned a new client, I was excited about my mother asked follow-up questions, rather than immediately changing the subject to Noah or Amelia. When I talked about a weekend trip, I was planning to New York for a design conference. My father offered some restaurant recommendations, rather than questioning the expense or necessity of the trip. Most surprisingly, when Amelia brought up her designs after dinner, Noah actually turned to me and said, "You should look at these, Eden. You're the expert in the family on this stuff." The expert in the family. A small acknowledgement, but one that would have been unimaginable 6 months ago. After dinner, as we were all helping to clear the table, my mother pulled me aside. "Eden," she began, her voice uncharacteristically hesitant. "I've been thinking about what happened with Switzerland and everything. It wasn't right what we did. I should have invited you, and I definitely shouldn't have taken your wallet without asking." It wasn't a full apology, but from my mother, it was monumental. "Thank you for saying that," I said simply. She nodded, clearly uncomfortable, but making the effort. "Your grandmother would have been very disappointed in me. She always said you had a special talent even when you were little. I should have listened to her more." The mention of my grandmother brought a lump to my throat. "She always believed in me," I agreed. "She was right to," my mother admitted. Then, awkwardly patting my arm, she returned to the kitchen. Later that evening, as I was preparing to leave, Amelia hugged me tightly. "I'm so glad things are better between us," she whispered. "I missed you." "I missed you too," I said, surprised to find that it was true. Despite everything, these people were my family. I didn't want to lose them. I just wanted them to treat me with the respect I deserved. As I drove home that night, I reflected on the journey of the past 6 months. The Switzerland incident had been painful, humiliating, and infuriating. But it had also been a catalyst for change, both in how my family treated me and in how I saw myself. I had framed my travel wallet and hung it in my office as a reminder. not of the betrayal, but of the moment I finally stood up for myself. Every time I looked at it, I was reminded of my own worth, of my right to be respected, of my ability to set and enforce boundaries. I had also started saving for my own trip to Switzerland, not out of spite or competition, but because it had always been a dream destination of mine. I wanted to see those mountains, taste that chocolate, experience that culture on my own terms with my own money, making my own memories. My relationship with my family was far from perfect. There were still moments of tension, old habits that resurfaced, subtle power struggles that played out over dinner conversations or holiday plans. But there was a fundamental difference now. I was no longer a passive participant in those dynamics. I had agency. I had boundaries. I had self-respect. I had also built a stronger support network outside my family. Sophia remained my closest friend, but I had also connected with other designers and artists in Boston, people who understood and valued my work without needing to be convinced of its worth. I had joined a community art studio, started teaching a design workshop at a local community college, and even begun dating someone who showed a genuine interest in my career and aspirations. In many ways, the Switzerland incident had been the best thing that could have happened to me. It had forced me to confront not just my family's behavior, but my own complicity in allowing that behavior to continue unchecked. It had pushed me to recognize my own value and to demand that others recognize it too. As I pulled into the parking space at my apartment building, I thought about the lesson I had learned through all of this. Sometimes the family you choose is more important than the family you're born into. And sometimes standing up to the family you're born into is the only way to truly become part of it. I had always sought my family's approval, their validation, their love. But what I had really needed was my own approval, my own validation, my own self-love. Once I found that, everything else began to fall into place. The journey wasn't over. There would be setbacks and struggles ahead. Old patterns would reassert themselves. New boundaries would need to be established. But I was no longer afraid of those challenges. I had found my voice, and I wasn't going to lose it again. As I unlocked my apartment door, I felt a deep sense of peace and satisfaction. The greatest journey wasn't to Switzerland. It was finding my own voice and learning to use it. It was discovering my own worth and refusing to let anyone diminish it. It was building a life on my own terms with people who respected and valued me for who I truly was. Have you ever had to stand up to family members who took you for granted? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. And if you found value in my journey of setting boundaries and finding self-respect, please hit that like button and subscribe to see more stories of personal growth and empowerment. Remember, sometimes the most important relationship you need to fix is the one with yourself. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you in the next video.